Today I will be interviewing Gabby Dietz. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that was right. That was right. You're good.
All right. Gabby is a senior at Loyola University of Chicago. She is double majoring in both sports management and marketing. But before we give Gabby the floor, um, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to listen today. All right. And so, Gabby, my first question to you is, how you doing?
That's a good question. Um, I'm good. Yeah, just finished up um my second to last semester, so one more semester to go. Getting nervous about jobs and stuff. We're trying not to think too hard about it. It's winter break, so I'm taking a break, right? Um, yeah, I'm home now. It's good to be home and yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Short answer, I'm good. Long answer, there's a lot going on.
For sure. Yeah, I know like as you're in like kind of that phase of being in your 20s, one, and then two, just trying to figure out your path towards adulthood and graduating and getting your bachelor's degree. Um it's a lot to navigate, but the best thing I can say is just to hang in there because you're almost done. And two, just be patient, embrace the moment you're in because moments don't last forever. So you just gotta appreciate the time you're in.
That's so true. It's gone so fast. Like this this last fall, I really tried to kind of savor a little bit, let it happen as it happened. But I think next spring, especially, is gonna be a big one for just kind of let it happen, let it move slowly, and just kind of savor it. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's gonna hit you like boom, like out of nowhere, and like you're
I
gonna be like, wow,
know.
I'm done with school, at least for now, unless you decide to pursue your master's.
For now, yeah, I've that's a worry for a couple of years down the road at least. So yeah, for now.
Okay, let's move. Um, so as we get more into like the show and talking about our relationship between you and me, we met each other through the Chicago Fire, working with the Chicago Fire as brand ambassadors. We just finished up our second season. I mean, I finished up my second season. You're coming off your first, I should say.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
gonna say, oh, I haven't been there that long.
yeah, but kind of tell me about your experience working with the fire and honestly how you found out about the Chicago Fire job.
Okay, yeah. I really enjoyed it, honestly. It was kind of my first, I mean, since then I've definitely had a lot of really good experiences in sports, but when I first got hired with the Fire, it was definitely kind of my first real experience with professional sports. It was a really big deal for me. Um, and that this first season was a blast. I mean, we all know the Fire aren't the best team in MLS, but don't pull the biggest numbers of attendance, but um the crew we had was just great. I mean, I loved going to work every day. I did a lot of those like match day -1s and -2s when I was like during over the summer when I had tons of free time, and those are just awesome. Those are so much fun. So yeah, I miss it. I'm ready for next season, honestly. I'm ready. I know it's gonna be a little different since we've got some personnel changes, but I'm really looking forward to it. I miss it. As for how I like found it, I found it on Teamwork Online, which like, I feel like everyone's like, that's the sports jobs website, Teamwork Online. And like I think a professor just told me about that. And so I was just perusing and perusing like weekly, like see what jobs are out there, and it popped up and I was like, oh wait, this is kind of awesome. So yeah, I just found it on Teamwork Online, applied, and it all worked out. Taylor interviewed me, which miss her, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. I mean, you talked about Teamwork Online. That is a heavy website for anyone that's trying to dive into sports and gain some experience, whether it's volunteer internships or looking for full-time positions. That's one of the key websites to go on. So
It is probably the number one website, I'd say. Yeah, it is it's a good website.
yeah, I mean, I just found out about it recently when I was like close to finishing up at the Paul.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I think that's it's definitely the way to go. And connections and opportunities, you got to take it full advantage of them.
Definitely, definitely.
So now that you've talked about your experience, like working with the fire, like what would you say was your most memorable experience? Um, I guess in a sense, like not just like working, but like things you were just able to highlight from being there.
Honestly, it really was kind of the experiences I got to have during those match day -1s and -2s. I know it's not like it's a bummer that those aren't more like accessible for like everyone to work. So a lot of
A lot
people
of
just
people just
do that kind of like brand ambassador stuff on the side and have a full-time job. But I really, really enjoyed those. Just like kind of I got to meet more of kind of like the club staff. Like Oscar would introduce us to a lot of different like just more of like the coaching staff and club staff, and more people would be around, and I got to recognize faces more, and just build those relationships more than I would have just doing game days. So that was like super valuable for me. And beyond that, kind of with the match day -1s and -2s, also like the just more experience and more kind of skills I got to develop, since those were always smaller crews. Got really good at driving those carts around,
Yeah,
stuff like that. But also just like, just getting more experience in a lot of more different places. And I'm really, really happy that, you know, obviously it was a bummer this summer I didn't have an internship. Instead, I did a bunch of different part-time stuff, but I think that was honestly more valuable. And I say this to everyone, like that was more valuable for me than I think like trying to find an internship somewhere. Um, just to have an internship. So yeah, those matching -1s, -2s, those are good.
yeah, no, I think that's something I wish I would have taken more advantage of. And you know, though I think those kind of prepare you in some sense to understand like the efforts it takes to like, have an end product on the field. There's so many different positions and opportunities that people don't realize are happening with people that work those jobs in the moment.
That's such a great way of putting it. Yeah, you really get a like much better of a sense than you would with just working game days. You really get a much better sense of um just everything that goes into producing um a match day for the Fire. And I think it is kind of different. They're different than a lot of other teams where they're not the primary tenant of their stadium. So that means a lot more work, a lot more logistics. But I mean, I feel like if you can do operations for the Fire, you can do operations for anyone, honestly, because it is hard work, and it is complicated and confusing and complex, but it's really, really rewarding. Yeah.
I love that. Um, and kind of just to go um on like with sports and like the different things you were able to experience working with the fire. Are there, and like your background being in sports management as well as marketing. Um, what are some like other experiences you've had in the sports industry so far?
Yeah, I mean, my one big other experience has been working with NASCAR, working with the Chicago Street Race Street Team, which has been a blast. It's been so much fun. It's kind of funny because I'm realizing I've been kind of spoiled because, as everyone who goes into sports management is because they're a huge sports fan, right?
Yeah,
And for me, going in, soccer and motorsports are like my two favorite sports. And those are the two industries, or kind of sub industries, I guess, that I've been able to work in. So I've been a little spoiled that way, a little bit privileged that way, which I won't complain about. But yeah, it's been a blast working with them too.
that's sweet. I know NASCAR kind of just started up this past summer. Like, it was a new implement, just kind of trying to broaden their horizons as far as a brand, and as a sport overall, throughout the country. Like, do you know, like, why they decided to come to Chicago, or was it kind of based off of the explanation I just gave?
It's really just about new fans, like you said, just trying to expand their base. as a fan, I can definitely speak more to that as a fan of NASCAR than as an employee. I'm not too partial to that kind of information as a street team member. Um, but yeah, like, with F1 rising, so many more F1 races in the last couple of years here in the US than there has been before. Um, I think just again from a fan perspective, NASCAR really, really wanted to kind of compete. That's one of their competitors, NASCAR, IndyCar, F1. Those are really the big competitors in the US. So I think it was just trying to, yeah, make their own kind of statement in that kind of thing. And yeah, I thought it was great, again, as a fan who got to kind of be there in a little bit more of a working capacity. I thought it was a great event. There's a lot to improve on, of course. But I thought it was a blast. And I think what was really cool about it was that F1 could never do a race in Chicago. That would never work. It would never happen. It just wouldn't happen. But NASCAR was able to pull it off. So I think that was awesome.
Yeah, no, you bring up a lot of points about F1. But before I ask you questions about that, one thing that like I can appreciate being a Chicagoan and being born and raised in Chicago is how much the roads have improved with uh, with with NASCAR happening. Because before the race, um, not to complain too much about the city, but like the roads on Lakeshore Drive, or people call it LSD, whatever you prefer to say, they were just bad. Like, and like it would just affect so much like trips going down and back. Um, and there's been so much improvement just going from the start of Lakeshore Drive to the end on the south side, north to south. So I really have been appreciative of that. But kind of just to go more on racing right now. Can you kind of, if you do know, can you like explain the difference between Formula One or F1 and NASCAR for those that don't
Yeah,
know much about
I
racing?
totally can. God, I love talking about racing. Racing really is like my big one that I'm really, really passionate about. I will say I played soccer growing up. That's like forever in my heart, but racing makes me excited. So yes, I'm more than happy to. So basically, NASCAR stands for, it's like North American, or yeah, something blah 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 stock car racing. So they're stock cars, which means they actually used to be like moonshine running cars down like Tennessee, like back during Prohibition. That's where NASCAR started. So they're just normal cars that they souped up with like these big engines, made them faster so they could outrun the police cars. And that kind of evolved into racing and then going around the ovals and everything. And now it's NASCAR as it is today. So they're meant to be normal looking cars. Obviously now they're specialized. There's too much money in the sport for them to just put like a Toyota Camry, a normal old
Yeah.
Toyota Camry that like on the track and race it around. It's a little boring. But they're meant to look like normal cars and behave for the most part like normal cars, but just they have some improvements. Like, so they don't have traction control, they don't have anti-lock brakes or power steering. So they're a little bit more raw, I guess you could say. But like you sit in there, you have a normal steering wheel. You're in a normal like front seat of a car, I guess you could say. So it's a little bit more familiar to maybe a normal person in that way. Formula One cars are open wheel racing cars. So there's no like cockpit or anything. You're in this little machine, I guess. It still has four wheels, but you're in it, and they sit kind of like, it's like their heads here and their feet are up here, so their body kind of goes like this. They're kind of like propped up. They have these weird steering wheels, and kind of the biggest difference is that Formula One is like the highest level of racing. So the cars go the fastest. They're the most advanced technologically. It's kind of like the pinnacle of technology of car racing is what F1 is supposed to be. Yeah. that pretty much sums it
Oh
up.
no, I
There's
think
so much
that's
more I could get into, but that I could get into the lower levels, but I won't get into all of that. This isn't a lecture on the differences, but yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
no, that was really good. I mean, a lot of the things that you described, I had no idea about with the function of cars, how they move and how they're built. So it's I can see from your knowledge already on cars that like this is something that like is big, one, and then two, you have so much information on it already.
Got a lot of got a lot of information up here on it. Yeah. It's funny because one of my big roles with NASCAR is to educate, to educate people. We do a lot of events, we do a lot of outreach in the Chicago area. And so a lot of that is kind of like educating people. What even is NASCAR? Like, what do you mean they're racing in Grant Park? Like, what are they gonna do? Like, what do you mean it's a street race? Like, are they race? They're just racing on the streets? Like, kind of explaining that to people and helping people understand what that means. So I really do enjoy that part, the kind of the education, the learning, the explaining. Yeah.
I love that. Um, all right. So now as like you kind of talked about your background and experience of sports so far, we're gonna go back in time. So we're gonna go like, have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite like movie series. But we're gonna go back in time. So we're gonna go back to, your roots and like, where you're from and just your upbringing. So if you could just start like, can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing for those that don't know about Gabby and where you're
Yeah.
from and stuff?
So I'm originally from St. Paul, Minnesota. That's where I am right now. Um, yeah, I grew up playing soccer. I always say like I'm from a soccer family. My dad played soccer. My grandpa's coached him and his brother. Like, we're a huge soccer family. Um, we were like founding season ticket holders for Minnesota United, which I think is hilarious as someone who works for the Chicago Fire. Um, when the Fire played Minnesota this year at Soldier Field, I literally took the day off of work to go to the game with my
I remember.
family. We sat in the away supporters section. Yep. So I'm a dedicated Minnesota fan. Um, but yeah, I grew up playing soccer here, club soccer, school soccer, all of it. And just like lived and breathed soccer forever. Well, lived and breathed a lot of things, to be fair. I was a band kid in high school, was always
Oh,
interested.
okay.
Still,
What
yeah,
instrument?
I played flute.
Okay.
I don't think it's too crazy to imagine me as a music kid, as a band kid. But
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, I had a lot of most of my friends didn't really play sports. They played instruments. They didn't play sports, they played instruments. Or like we're in the musical and things like that. So I was always really involved in the arts and stuff too. So I really enjoyed that. Side of things too have kind of grown away from it, but I still really do enjoy it. Um, but yeah, just always loved soccer and lived and breathed soccer. So when it was time to go to college, I didn't want to play soccer. I was definitely burnt out, happens to a lot of youth athletes, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd still wanted to I really wanted to still be involved with it because I knew it was that that's where my passions were in sports. So I decided to go into sports management. Um, Added on marketing a little bit later, like a year or so in, and I really, really enjoy that side of things too, that kind of more creative side of things. And yeah, I've just been enjoying it. Just been enjoying Chicago, really. I don't think there's a better place to go to school than Chicago, honestly. It's really just
Right on, right
it's
on.
it's the best, right? Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, I've just been enjoying life since then. Obviously, I graduated high school during the pandemic. I graduated in 2020, so
Ooh.
oh, that put a wrench in things. Kind of the trajectory of life, but I'd say it put a wrench in everyone's plans. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
now it's 2023 and I just turned 22 and yeah, I'm an
Oh,
adult. It's
happy
weird.
birthday. Yeah, I
Thank
didn't know
you.
that. Okay. So I mean, you kind of described, your upbringing. Do you have any siblings? And
I do.
Is it a boy or a girl?
I have a younger sister who is also sports crazy, which I think is a funny thing.
Does she play soccer as well?
She plays soccer, she plays basketball, she plays softball. She's a three-sport athlete, three
Wow.
season athlete. Yep.
That's sounding a lot like my sister. Um, in high school, she played like every sport you can think of, but
hmm
in college, she switched over to softball primarily, and then finished off in lacrosse.
Okay, yeah, totally. I know a lot of people who did like soccer and lacrosse. That was a big one at my school. Um, yeah, I really admire her. She's 15, so like she's still in high school.
So
Um,
she's still
I,
feeling it out.
yeah, she's feeling it out, and I really, really admire her for that because I was just like, well, I've always played soccer. I have to keep playing soccer. I don't have time for anything else. I'm playing soccer. But she just was like, well, no, I'm gonna play basketball in the fall because my friends are playing basketball. And in the spring, my friends are playing softball, so I'm gonna play softball. I think this next year she wants to play golf in the spring because her friends are playing golf,
Ooh,
not softball. So yeah,
okay.
I really admire her for like always wanting to try new things and not just like, being willing to keep learning and keep learning a new skill and things like that. Because I definitely, like I said, I played the flute and I started playing the flute in fourth grade, started playing competitive soccer in third grade. So it was like, those are my things. Those are the only things I do. So yeah, I really admire her for being able to go out there and do new things because that's something I definitely wish I had done.
So is the age gap between you and your sister like far enough where like you really didn't like compete with her at like a young age, or you were kind of just like the big sister making sure she's good?
Exactly. It was definitely more of like a big sister kind of thing. Um, when we were when we were like really little, like when she was really, really little, it was definitely more of like a, I'm the big sister kind of thing. And then we kind of grew apart actually, like while she was in like late elementary school, middle school, just because like I'm 17 years old. What do I have in common with my 10-year-old sister, Like,
He's
which like
probably
makes
annoying
sense.
you, not
Right.
kicking
Like,
the
I was
door.
like, what do we have in common? She doesn't want to talk to me. Like, I don't want to talk to her. I'm busy.
Yeah.
Um, but then after I'd say after the pandemic, as I've, I come back for breaks and stuff, we've definitely gotten closer again. She's got a phone now, so we text and
Ooh,
we send each other
okay.
TikToks and all that. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like the 22 and 15 balance is definitely better than say 15 and 8 or something like that.
Do you feel like you're in a different generation than hers? Because like for me, I'll speak on my experience. I also have
hmm
a younger brother that's a freshman in college right now. I'm the oldest of three, and we're roughly not all too far apart from each other. Like I think the far stretch, the most is like a good 6.5, almost 7 years. But like, just as far as in relation to me and my siblings, I feel like I can still be able to relate to them. So do you feel that as well? Like with the things she's into or the things that she knows that you know as well?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think I'd agree with you there. Like I can definitely still relate with her because you're probably like old, like the oldest of Gen Z, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So because I'm like a couple years in, but I'm still like older Gen Z. And she's definitely like younger Gen Z. So it's a but I think that the I'm like she's definitely still Gen Z because the things are still there. The things are still the same and we can still relate on a lot of things that like we watched growing up or like what was popular when we were younger and things like that. So yeah, I'd say I don't feel much of a like a separation. I've one of my roommate has a little brother who was born in 2010,
Oh
which
wow.
is so they're like a full 8 or 9 years apart. So it's like I know they definitely feel that's a little bit more of a stretch, but my
Mhm.
sister's only a couple years older than him, but I feel like she's very, very close to the cutoff there. Yeah. But it's interesting.
I love that. Every time you get a chance to be around family, you got to take full advantage of it. And it's great to hear about your experiences with you and your sibling. Um, but now, as we kind of like go more back into sports, um, and you've talked a little bit about your upbringing. Tell me how like sports overall has influenced your life.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about it and it kind of worries me because I'm like, oh, have I ever known anything like but sports? Because like I said, like grew up living and breathing soccer, played high school soccer and club soccer at the same time as a teenager. Like now I'm a sports management major in college. When I studied abroad, I played while I was studying abroad for my university over there. Like just so much soccer, right? So many sports, like never ending. But then I'm like, well, I mean, that's what I'm passionate about. So I'd say maybe it was meant to be. Maybe it's just had such an influence on me that I don't know anything else. But it definitely it's something that I've always been passionate about. Sports, would sit around watching Sunday night football with my parents every night when I was like 11, learning about pass interference, what is holding me, and all that stuff.
Okay.
What's a flag, all the football rules. And so I'd say it's kind of influenced everything, all the decisions I've made, which is kind of a heavy thing if you think too hard about it. But then I remind myself, I mean, like I had that choice. I had choices to go into different things, but sports is just it's just number one. It's just what I'm passionate about. It's influenced like my friendships, my relationships. It's influenced like my family or my family's culture. I mean, literally going to Minnesota United games is like one of like our number one things to do, like the number one family activities during the season. So yeah, it's sports is just kind of everything, which like I said, it's a little heavy if you think too hard about it, but I feel like that goes for a lot of American families. Like sports is so ingrained in like American culture, worldwide culture, but I think especially American culture that it's not too uncommon for sports to be so important to a family. But yeah.
I love it. You kind of you've highlighted everything, and I think for me personally, I can relate a lot. Growing up in the inner part of the city of Chicago, basketball has always been big. Watching the Bulls play, and just being around a competitive spirit. Like I feel like there's just some grit that you get from growing up in a city environment where like everyone's competing. And I think that's one of the things that always drew me closer to sports is just like wanting to be the best, or just being around like a group of people that think like you as well. So I appreciate that explanation. And as you talk, well, actually, as you, yeah, as you talked about like, just the sports you played as a kid, um, I realized just like thinking about Minnesota overall, because I mean, from our previous conversations, I've highlighted how like Minnesota, I mean, within the last like 10 years or so, has been trending basketball related with all the guys that are coming into the NBA, or like
Mm-hmm.
all the star athletes for women's and men's that are coming out. But like Minnesota is also a hockey state as well, because like I'd be thinking about the snow, and then I also think about like, just the ice and like all of that stuff when I think about Minnesota. So tell me, like, I know you said you primarily played soccer, and that was your sport, but tell me what went into the decision of like not being influenced to play basketball or hockey, or like, skate in any manner.
Yeah. It really, I know how to ice skate. I feel like if you live in Minnesota, you have to know how to ice skate. So like I can pop on a pair of skates and go hop on the rink. Um, but I tried hockey. My parents are actually East Coast transplants. They both grew up on the East Coast and moved out here. Um, but so like a lot of the soccer was like, well, my dad put me in soccer, my parents put me in soccer when I was like 6 years old, and I just stuck with it. But I tried a ton of different sports. I danced for a little bit when I was younger. I was a swimmer. um I I did horseback riding, or I guess I still do horseback riding, I guess, but that's like a
Oh,
less of
okay,
a
that's cool.
competitive, it's more of like a for fun kind of exercise than a competitive sport. um like I snowboarded, but ice hockey. I tried ice hockey. This is actually a funny story. I tried it for was when I was like I don't know, 7, 8 years old in like a little like rec league. They like taught you how to skate and then like taught you how to like hold a hockey stick, like stuff like that. And the first time I went, I think I went 3 times. The first time I went, I was way too cold and I hated it. So the second time my parents got me all bundled up, then it was way too hot and I hated it. And then the third time we tried to balance it out and I can't remember, but it still didn't work. And I just realized I hated it. I didn't like it. So I never played hockey again, which is, I feel like I would have made a really good hockey player. So that's kind of unfortunate, but I feel like I got a good build for hockey. But you know, it's all good. That would have been fun. It would have been nice to like really know how to skate because I always went to like middle school and high school with, we'd go rollerblading on like a field trip. And there'd be like some kids just like whizzing. They'd be like going backwards and stuff, like showing off because they were the really good hockey players. But yeah, it just didn't work out like that. Soccer
So
just,
you do know how to skate or you don't?
I do, yes, I do,
Okay.
yeah. Because there's
All
so
right.
many like in the winter, all the like all the rec centers open like outdoor ice skating rinks that you can just like go to. So it's a very common activity, especially in the city. A lot of people do like ice rinks in their backyards too, which is cool. So yeah, kind of a necessary skill to have to participate. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, for me, I learned how to skate basically from going to like family night events through my elementary school. We just go to like a
Ah,
local ice rink around the
yeah.
area, and like you quickly learn like how not to fall on your face or
Right.
on your behind because those hits to the ice can really hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely not, I'm not Wayne Gretzky or anything, but yeah, I always say like, if you put me on an ice rink, I can definitely hold my own.
Okay, nice. Um, so now that you've kind of talked about your upbringing and just the experience of living and growing up in Minnesota, um, like with your experiences of working in sports so far, what do you think is the key recipe to success in your opinion?
Ooh, this might get a little bit cynical.
Okay.
I think sports is so competitive, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's not something I think. That's a fact. Sports is so competitive. Like you
Yes.
can't even debate that. Um, but I think a big part of it is that like it's really not that competitive, Like obviously everyone wants to work in sports, but everyone wants to work for, the Bulls. Everyone wants to work for the Cubs. Everyone wants to work for the Bears. Everyone wants to work, and everyone wants to work in the NFL, the MLB, the NBA. The amount of jobs out there that are, in the minor leagues or stuff like that. It's it's still competitive. Don't get me wrong. The whole job
Mhm.
market is competitive, right? But if you are really dedicated into to getting into sports and getting that experience, I think there's options out there. You just with sports, I think the competitiveness comes from how much are you willing to sacrifice,
Yeah.
and how much are you able to sacrifice. That's part of it too. I think a lot of the industry you have to be really privileged to participate in because a lot of things it's so competitive that they're like, oh, well, this is unpaid, it's the Bulls offering unpaid internships and things like that. I'm like, you're the Chicago Bulls, you can pay your interns, and stuff like that, where it's like, come
Yeah.
on, be for real.
Yeah.
um that makes it difficult for people to really break in because I need a paid internship. Like people I know need a paid internship. They can't afford to. They literally cannot afford monetarily to do an unpaid internship.
Hmm.
So I think that gets really difficult. But there are opportunities out there in the minor leagues. I see tons of minor league positions all the times. It's just about can you move to the middle of nowhere in the cornfields in Iowa, and are you willing to? Cool, yes. Okay, can you even do that? That's part of it too. But I think the opportunities are out there. Maybe that's just something I tell myself. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But for college students, my big thing is like it's okay to do grunt work. you know that's something I've learned myself is like sometimes you gotta push around some carts and you gotta lift some things and you gotta just like do some grunt work to really make your connections. Because I don't know about you, but with the fire, I've made some great connections with NASCAR. I've made some awesome connections with them too, but just from grunt work, part-time event positions, I've been able to make some great connections and get some really good experience. Um, Maybe this is more a Loyola issue than a general college student issue. Again, that's a whole other conversation, but I feel like a lot of people I know, oh, don't get me wrong, a lot of people I know like love their part-time work and things like that, but a lot of people I know are just not interested in it. Like they just don't want to do it. And I'm like, well, you got to get your foot in the door somehow. So I'll never say never to grunt work is I think my message there.
I love that. I mean, it goes with the mentality being said that, if you really want it bad enough, you will make a way, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and you see it all the time with like just watching teams play and athletes and their dedication, just having a willingness to want to win by all means necessary. They're really to put their life on the line, their body on
Hmm.
the line each day to sacrifice things in order to just be great and inspire others. So
And everyone has a different path, right? Like everyone's on their own path, their own journey. So like what I just said, that's so simplistic and like, that's been my experience is, grunt work can take you to some great places and some really cool opportunities. But yeah, everyone's story is so different. So it's so hard. Sports industry, it is so convoluted.
do you feel like, I mean, just with like your explanation, let alone that, like, and you explaining like how you have a desire to like work in the sports industry, you're like willing to make those sacrifices?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I touched on this, but didn't really kind of articulate it. I feel like one of the biggest sacrifices that people aren't willing to make, especially in Chicago, which I totally get, is they don't want to move anywhere. They want to find something in Chicago. Like
Hmm.
Chicago is one of the biggest sports markets in the world. Like
Yeah,
you're you're not guaranteed, and there's so many people in Chicago looking for, let's
the
just
exact
say,
same
entry
position.
level, yeah, sports opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think a big like being able to wanting to move anywhere, being willing to move anywhere, that's a huge sacrifice to make. Um, and I totally understand that, but for me, I'm like, I've already left home, I don't have to stay in Chicago. My lease is up in May, so I'm
Hmm.
ready to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that comes from privilege too, like I have the ability to move anywhere. I don't have family that I have to come back to Minnesota to take care of or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that, I have the freedom to go anywhere. But I think that's a big factor too, especially in Chicago. So many people are like, no, I live in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I can't leave Chicago. It's Chicago. I'm gonna live in
Yeah.
Chicago forever. That's not even just in sports. I feel like that's a really just a Chicago
I
mindset
mean,
that I've kind
Chicago's
of
the
picked up
best.
on.
Like it's one of the best cities in the world. And
Chicago is the best. Chicago is the best. If I could, oh my God, if I could work for a Chicago, if I could get scooped up by a Chicago sports team and work for them forever and, you know, get an apartment somewhere like right off the blue line or something. Oh, dream come true, Like that
yeah,
would be beautiful. But um I fear that's not in the cards for me fresh out of college.
you never
So
know.
competitive. You never know. And believe me, I'll be patrolling those Chicago job boards. I'll be patrolling those career fairs, but yeah, I feel like you gotta, if you really, really want it that bad, you gotta acknowledge the sacrifices that might be necessary. And sometimes one of those sacrifices I think is moving to North Carolina,
Hmm.
moving to North Dakota, moving to
Yeah.
Arizona, who knows? I don't know about Arizona. That might be a bit too hot for me, but
I love that though. And you did like a great job of explaining like, really what comes down to like taking that next step with wanting to pursue your dreams, because a lot of times people can just get comfortable and complacent in their own circle instead of growing and expanding. So I love how you were able to like kind of like flip that around and look at the positives. Like, hey, there's so many advantages. Like, just take it and take that leap.
Go have an
Um,
adventure, you know?
yeah. So as we move forward with this show, talking about in the relation of just women's and men's sports, how have you how do you feel like it's grown throughout the years, and like what are some things you would like to see improve or change from any sports league, or like just as far as like athletes in general between men's and women's?
It's a great question. Um, I mean, my knowledge mostly comes from like women's soccer for the most
Mhm.
part. Um, I think, women's soccer is a lot. The NWSL, that's the kind of comparative to MLS, for women's soccer, National Women's Soccer League. They've grown a ton, since in the last 5 years, since I've been in college, since I've been kind of in the later stages of high school. Um, but I think they can grow even more. Um, Obviously, they're nowhere near the level of MLS, but the level of MLS is a whole nother conversation when it comes to like business operations. I mean, they have so much money. um, but I think there really is a positive trend. People are investing in women's sports, investing financially, investing their interest, investing their time. Like people are really starting to be interested in women's sports. And I'm so happy that like people like what's her name? Asia O'Neal, the volleyball player for Texas. Like Caitlin Clark, of course, Angel Reese. Like, I'm happy that we're getting these like big names in like women's college sports who are really getting their flowers from like an NIL perspective, as well as just like a social perspective. I think that's really great for women's sports. Like, you know, because I think a big part of the issue is the misogyny that still exists um in our world, and especially in sports. I think you open Bleacher Report's comments on Instagram and it's just like absolute nonsense of just misogyny, just unnecessary stuff, and it's like it's unnecessary, but then they post something about Kate and Clark and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But I open up and the comments are like, shoot, she's really good. Like she could cross over, like, I don't know, LaMelo or something. Like just some really funny comments that are like, okay, like I like this. I can get behind this, like we can compare athletes without that example. I guess we can compare athletes without like putting athletes down, and we can have fun with it, because I feel like the comparisons between men's and women's sports are never not going to exist, right? Like they're always going to be there. um Nothing wrong with a little friendly competition, I think, but like I don't know, let's let people enjoy things, again, that's getting into like the social side of men's and women's sports. But um I'm really really happy with where women's sports is going, because it's not an immediate thing, right? It's not going to happen like, oh, 1 year and the NWSL is as profitable as MLS. It's a long and winding road that's going to take a lot of further investment, and further development, but we're getting there.
I love that. I think women's sports has grown exponentially throughout the years from a revenue standpoint and just overall interest with viewership among different like television um, companies. Overall, I still think there's still a lot to expand on, and I don't feel like women's sports has even scratched the surface as far as like what they're capable of attracting and what they're able to the impact they're able to make on other people around the world. So I love that take. Um, you talked about NIL deals. NIL deals is a big market right now for women's athletes, especially women um, athletes that are girls in college right now. So I think like right now, like the top dogs, and like you said, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, a lot of those girls are making top money. and they wouldn't be able to have that opportunity if it wasn't for the former athletes that kind of laid down that barrier that is being broken right now.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Um, yeah, you gotta think about, like, the former superstars and everything from back in the day and how much money they should have gotten, that they deserved. But that's part of change, right? That's part of development. So it's unfortunate, but I'm glad we have NIL now. Yeah.
I love that. So now we're gonna transition over into like kind of like nitty gritty stuff, life lessons. So I want you to tell me a difficult time you've had in your life and how you were able to overcome it.
Yeah, I've been very privileged that I haven't had too rough of times. Um I would say, it feels kind of inconsequential now, but I had some I'd say, like, relatively bad mental health struggles in, like, my sophomore year of high school. Not unheard of for, a high schooler. Um but it was I kind of reached a moment where I kind of had to be like, okay, like, my parents were part of this too. Like, okay, what's going on? What's the situation? What are we gonna do here?
Mhm.
Because I got really bad grades my freshman year of high school, like horrible grades, like really bad grades, horrible way to start high school. And it was kind of just like a moment of like, okay, how are you going to invest in your future? Kind of like, this is on you. You are growing up. You have autonomy. You are your own person. What kind of decisions are you going to make for you? And my parents were very supportive, but there was a little bit of tough love that I needed. Um, and that was tough. And sophomore year was tough after that. I was just trying to, you know, really learn how to invest in myself and invest in my future. It was a rough year, but it kind of just, I know some people who still struggle with this now. Don't get me started on that, but it's just like, you as a person are responsible for your own life and your own decisions and your own dreams. And, there no one can tell you what to do. We are, we have personal freedoms. We're lucky enough to live in the United States where, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of religion, we have freedom of travel. You can go anywhere, at least in the US. So, like, it's like, what are you going to do with your time and yourself? What are you going to do? You have that decision. So you better make the most of it. It's just kind of that kind of thing. And that's something that I definitely think I stand by. I don't like to do things I don't want to do, and a bigger picture kind of idea. I'm not gonna, why would I be an engineering major if I don't enjoy engineering? That kind of thing. I know people who are going into pre-med, but they don't even enjoy medicine. It's like, well, why would you do that? For the money? That's dumb, so that's just, I know a lot of people disagree with that, but for me that's kind of just my mantra of like, we only have one life, so I'm going to do what makes me happy. um and I'm going to invest in myself as best as I can through my actions.
I love that. Everyone has their own motives. But like, you just really have to come down to understanding what is it that you really want to pursue and what's the biggest thing, what's your biggest calling in some sense. And
Right.
um I think through sports and starting up this podcast recently, talking to many other athletes and people and fans of sports, I've been able to understand like, hey, like I can actually serve a purpose and make an impact and help people in some matter. So I love that take. Salute to you for grinding it out through the dog years, and like you're up. You're
Those really are the dog years. Sophomore year of high school, yeah.
yeah, everyone, I feel like everyone has to go through it to or understand like adversity in some sense or struggle in order to attain success um, at a better level. Um, so now that like we've kind of talked about like a difficult time you faced, could you give me some like I usually do like top three experiences, but if you have if you don't have three, that's fine. But like you can give me up to three memorable experiences you've had in sports so far.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Ooh, I'll go in like chronological order. Um, so number one, when I was 15, no. Yeah, when I was 15. Yes, 15. Okay. When I was 15, I got to go to Sweden. I got to go to the Gothia Cup, which is the largest youth soccer tournament in the world. I got to go there, got to play, with my club team, and we played, and it was awesome. There were a couple other teams from our club there, and one of them got third place in their age group, which was crazy. So fun to be able to support them. And I'd say that the question you asked earlier about like how sports have influenced me, I think that going to that tournament and being a part of that is what really made me kind of realize like this is really cool. Like this community that sports can create and that soccer can create, like this is really awesome. Like I want to be a part of this. I want to keep making this happen. So I was there for like 2.5 weeks, and it was just the best 2.5 weeks of my life. At least up until then. I've had some pretty good 2.5 weeks since then, but that was awesome. Second would probably be just the Chicago street race, that street race weekend. It was hectic. It was a total rainstorm, like downfall. My roommate texted me on Sunday morning that our basement was flooding. Like it was a mess. But I had just such a freaking blast. It was so much fun. It was my first ever NASCAR race weekend. So just like being a part of that, I would love to continue to work with NASCAR. It's such a fun organization. Who knows where that's gonna go, but like I was really like, oh, I want to have a lot more of these weekends in my future, you know. So fingers crossed, right? But that was a blast. And our team, I love my coworkers there. I love my fire coworkers, but I really love my NASCAR coworkers too. We have a much smaller team. It's a lot more like tight knit, and they're a really fun group. And the last one, I'll use like the Miami game, the Inter Miami game at Soldier Field to kind of sum up the whole Chicago Fire season. Because I'd say like if we can call that season an experience overall, um, I really really enjoyed that. It was such a fun season, getting to work in soccer and getting to work in sports like in that kind of operational way. Was just a blast. And then your Miami game was so much fun because we just had so many people there, and people are so excited. Even though Messi wasn't there and wasn't playing, people
I
still showed
know.
up and still had fun. And it was the loudest it had ever been there for a fire game, I feel like. So just like, it's kind of a bummer because it's like, oh dang, fire games could be like this all the time. But um just the season overall, but especially that game, I'd say would be my third one.
The Messi game was definitely hyped to say the least, but it really didn't disappoint despite Messi not showing up.
No.
Yeah, like everyone was into it. The capacity and the attendance for Soldier Field that night was it honestly felt like a Bears game because like, there's so many games throughout the season, but to see Soldier Field packed like that was insane. And like we kind of all made an impact in some form or matter, like even if it was little.
Yeah, that was an awesome night, and it was a really inspiring night for like soccer in Chicago. I feel like, it's like, oh, this is what we could have. Like, all right, I know like we're not full-time staff. We don't really have that kind of impact with the club, but it's like, all right, guys, what are we gonna do to make this happen? What are we gonna do to keep making this happen? Like we can have this. But that's a whole nother conversation again.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you telling me about just like your past experiences, whether it's good or bad, and how you've been able to like just learn and grow from them. So like as we now look onto future adventures or your next set of goals, what's in store for Gabby? Like what, like if you were offered a full-time position right now, what industry would you want to work in, and what's your ideal job or like dream job in some manner?
Yeah. I would lo- I would love to do something with track communications or like track operations or like logistics for
Mhm.
either NASCAR or like a specific NASCAR team. I think that'd just be, or any motorsports team, to be honest. Like I've really treasured my experience with the fire because I've realized I really, really enjoy that kind of operational side of things. I love engaging with fans and everything, but what really, like, I really enjoy kind of figuring out all those problems and stuff that always come up, right? So I really enjoy that side of things. I love, the match day minus ones and twos with Oscar. Um, so taking that and applying it to NASCAR, which during the race weekend, I was in kind of more of an operational kind of communications role. Um, since, where else was I going to be? So that I just really, really enjoyed the operations, the logistics, and I would love to keep doing that. But no, 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 no promises on that, right? So I'm really open-ended. Who knows right now? Who knows? Depends on who has openings and where and who likes the way my resume looks and the way I talk. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I love that. You got to dream big, and the world is
Gotta have
yours.
goals. Yeah.
You gotta have dreams, and you gotta start from somewhere. Um, so as we come up on the last couple questions before the show ends, um, I would like to talk about like like if you had to. I mean, we've been kind of talking about advice this whole time, but if you really had to like go back in time to your younger self and reflecting on where like life has taken you up into this point, what would you say to your younger self?
Ooh, how young?
It could be, let's go um like we could do freshman year of high school up
Freshman
until,
year of high school. Okay.
yeah, like the things
Hmm.
to be prepared for, or like what advice you would give to yourself to be prepared for to this point right now.
I'd say, I'd say that's really tough. Just don't be afraid. Sorry, I gotta text my mom.
You're good.
Um, yeah. I would say, wow, you put me on the spot here.
I come
Don't
prepared.
don't be afraid to don't be afraid. We'll leave it there. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try new things, to ask questions, to get involved, to put yourself out there. Um, I think one of my big things is I'm an introvert, which I feel like we've talked about, and you were like, "What? You're an introvert?" But it's like when I'm just in like a social situation, like just me put in a social situation, no, like, I don't know. I don't know what I have in common. Like, I don't know if I know anyone. Like, I just shut down. I get all in my head, and it's a whole thing. Um, and I've gotten better about that, definitely. I think working in sports and working in events and stuff has definitely helped me get better at that. But freshman year of high school, I sure was not good at that. So, I think just like don't be afraid. People are people are people, and they're gonna have their opinions, and if they think you're weird, that's okay. Because there'll be people out there who think you're super cool and super awesome, so who cares what people think? um don't be afraid of them, and just go have some fun. Yeah.
I love that. And you kind of just talked about like breaking out of your shell and being confident with yourself. The quickest thing that comes to mind when I think about that is honestly understanding your own identity, and that's
Hmm.
a lot of things. It takes a while to really develop that and understand that.
It
So
does, yeah. That's a hard thing to do as a freshman in high school, so I definitely don't, hold that against myself, but yeah.
I love that. So this is my last question to you before we leave. So on the show, I just recently started doing this towards like the end of the show. It's called Current Topic Time, where I ask the guests like about current events and things that are going around the world. So we can kind of touch base on like some of the topics that I did in my last show, and we'll just carry it over. But so I have some topics, and I want you to pick out of any of the topics, and then based off of the topic or the subject I give you, we'll talk about it for however long. So I have I have immigration, so like migrants, like we can focus on the U.S. or we can focus on particularly in Chicago because I know that's big, or climate change. So which one would you which
Some heavy
current,
topics.
yeah, which current
Wow.
topic would you like to talk about?
Let's talk about climate change because I think that affects both of the others too, kind of.
Okay, we can talk about climate change. All right, climate change is our topic. So what would you say is currently going on, like as far as like what are the biggest challenges with climate change right now and how it's affecting the way we live in the US and overall the world?
I think I think it's a very no, it's not that complex of an issue, but the kind of the ramifications of it are really complex, you know. Um, my roommate, who's a biology major, and I actually had kind of we had a really good conversation about this the other day about kind of like resources and how we can change a lot of the resources we use. And I think one of the things we talked about was how little changes, little bits of incremental change isn't enough. Just a bit of an extremist view, I think, you know, kind of implying that we need a big change, like nothing's going to happen without a big huge change. But I think the point that we're at, unfortunately, in terms of like fossil fuel consumption, like petrol consumption and oil like the way we're, oh, what's the word, like fracking oil and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
those things are
No,
such money makers. And I think unfortunately like our capitalist world is so, not to sound like anarchical, but I think our capitalist world is just so caught up in money, and the big money makers are so caught up in money that they're not going to start making changes, really actually true change, um until their operations start getting affected. So, you know, once shorelines start moving inwards because like really actually moving inwards because ocean levels are rising, once things become too hot for certain things to even operate, like I think it change is not really going to happen. This is so negative, I'm so sorry,
oh,
but
you're fine.
um it's so
You're
pessimistic. But I think just,
important.
you know, the big industries are not going to really change their practices um, until they start really being, until Mother Earth really just starts coming at them like really ferociously. And I think at that point it'll be too late. I think it's almost already too late, um, which is really unfortunate. But I think, you know, I think the positive thing is that humans aren't going to go extinct because of climate change. You know, the world isn't going to blow up because of climate change. um this is so anarchical, I'm so sorry. I'm
Oh,
like,
you're
well,
fine.
civilization might collapse, but human beings will still be around, which I think is
Yeah.
true. And I'm kind of like, you know, when we're talking on that big of a scale, you know, because part of the conversation I had with my roommate actually was like, what can we do? How is what we do even important? It's like, well, at that point, when civilization is collapsing, our individual lives don't mean anything. So then it's like, okay, well, then maybe it's okay to make it a little bit about ourselves. You know, yes, it's important to recycle and it's important to, you know, advocate for green energy use and things like that. But, you know, maybe it's okay to sometimes just focus a little bit on myself and what I want to do. And because you know, society's going to collapse eventually anyways. So pessimistic. I'm so sorry.
It's
Um,
funny. It's funny.
but yeah, that kind of idea of like, you know, it's okay to, it's okay to fly, even though that uses so many carbon emissions, and it's okay to, not be a vegetarian, even though meat is has large water consumption and stuff like that. Like it's okay to do those things because in the larger picture, our little bits of incremental change are not going to be enough to completely flip climate change, right? So that's kind of my overall view. Obviously, it's still a very important issue, but yeah. It was so
Uh,
negative. I'm so sorry.
it's all right. Yeah, I think everyone will appreciate your take, as we all have different perspectives on really what we think is to come with the future, especially on the impact with climate change. I mean, who knows? We might end up in space because there's stuff going on with Tesla and like SpaceX and stuff like that. We might be
Who
on a
knows,
different
right?
yeah.
We might be on Mars and before the Earth starts really getting bad. Yeah, who knows? Might be like Wall-E. We might be on a big spaceship. Like, who knows?
I love it. Well, that pretty much wraps up all my questions for you today, Gabby. I want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. I would love to, I still feel like we're still going to be able to connect even after this, working with the fire and seeing what's in store. Just as much as anyone that's trying to make an impact in sports and work in the industry, I'm rooting for you. So I thank you for giving me the time to talk to interview you and talk with you. And for everyone that's listening today, or like whenever you tune in to listen, your support goes a long way. So I really appreciate that. Um, so signing off, this is your host, Anthony Ayeni, on the Backyard Talks podcast show with Gabby Dietz, or is it, did I say it right?
Deets. Almost. You were so close.
Sorry. Dietz. All right. Again, she is a current senior at Loyola University of Chicago, studying marketing and sports management. For everyone that's listening, tune in for another week of the Backyard Talks podcast show, where a new person will be interviewed.